The envelope landed on our kitchen table with a soft thud, Marcus's eyes sparkling with excitement as he pushed it toward me. "Open it," he urged, practically bouncing on his feet. "I have the biggest surprise for you, Emma." My name is Emma Chen, and at 34, I thought I knew my husband better than anyone. We'd been married for 8 years, built a life together, and shared the same dream of owning a beautiful Victorian home someday. But that morning, as I opened the envelope with trembling fingers, I realized how wrong I'd been. Inside was a deed. My eyes scanned the familiar address, 1242 Maple Grove. The Victorian house we'd admired for years, with its wraparound porch and original stained glass windows. The one we'd walk past every Sunday, imagining ourselves restoring it to its former glory. "How did you?" I started, my voice trailing off as I noticed the purchase price. $475,000, the exact amount that had been in my private savings account. Marcus beamed, clearly mistaking my shock for joy. "I know we've always talked about waiting, but when I saw it was for sale, I knew I had to act fast. I wanted to surprise you." I forced my hands to stay steady as I looked through the paperwork. There it was, the transfer receipt from my personal account, the one I'd been building since before our marriage. The one Marcus wasn't supposed to have access to. "This is," I paused, choosing my words carefully, "quite a surprise. How did you manage the transfer from my account?" His smile faltered slightly. "Oh, that. Well, I noticed you left your banking information up on your laptop a few weeks ago. I knew you'd been saving, and I thought, what better way to use it than our dream home?" The casual way he admitted to violating my privacy made my stomach turn. But I kept my expression neutral, years of experience as a corporate lawyer helping me maintain my composure. "It's definitely amazing," I said softly, watching his face light up again. What Marcus didn't know was that 3 months ago, I discovered something that had changed everything. I'd been working late at my law firm when a notification popped up on my phone. An alert from our joint account showing a large transfer to an unknown recipient. When I investigated, I found a pattern of suspicious transactions stretching back months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums, all going to different accounts. That discovery led me down a rabbit hole of financial records and hidden transactions. Marcus, my loving husband who claimed to be building his startup, had been gambling. Not just casual betting, but serious high-stakes poker games and online gambling sites. He'd managed to hide it well, using various accounts and always having a plausible explanation for our dwindling joint savings. The moment I uncovered the truth, I'd started preparing. I opened a new account at a different bank, one Marcus didn't know about. I began quietly transferring funds from my private savings account, leaving just enough to avoid suspicion. The real money, nearly $800,000 from years of careful saving and smart investments, was safely tucked away where he couldn't touch it. But I couldn't tell him that. Not yet. Instead, I watched as he walked around our kitchen, describing his grand plans for renovating the Victorian house. Each word felt like another brick in the wall of lies we'd built between us. "The best part," he said, pulling me close, "is that we can start moving in next week. I've already given notice on our apartment." I felt my heart race but kept my voice steady. "Next week? That's soon." "Why wait?" He grinned, kissing my cheek. Everything's falling into place perfectly. If only he knew how wrong he was. That evening, after Marcus went to bed, I sat in our dark living room, my laptop casting a soft glow as I reviewed our financial records again. The gambling transactions had increased over the past month. Larger amounts, more frequent bets. He was spiraling, and now he'd crossed the line by taking my savings without permission. I pulled out my phone and called Grace, my best friend and fellow lawyer. "He did what?" she hissed when I explained the situation. "Emma, that's theft. You need to report this." "I know," I said quietly, glancing toward the bedroom. "But I need to be smart about this. He doesn't know about the other account. If I play this right, I can protect myself and make sure he faces the consequences of his actions." Grace was silent for a moment. "What's your plan?" I took a deep breath. "First, I need to document everything. The unauthorized access to my account, the transfer, his admission about getting my banking information. Then I need to talk to a real estate lawyer. If he used stolen funds to purchase the house, that transaction could be invalidated." "And then what?" Grace asked softly. "Then I'll show him exactly what happens when you underestimate your wife." The next morning, I woke up early and drove to the Victorian house before work. Standing on the sidewalk, looking up at its elegant facade, I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. This was supposed to be our dream home, a symbol of our future together. Instead, it had become a monument to Marcus's betrayal. I took pictures of the property and made notes about its condition. If this was going to end up in court, and I had a feeling it would, I needed to be thorough. At work, I closed my office door and made several calls. First to my bank, reporting the unauthorized access and transfer. Then to Jennifer Walsh, one of the best real estate lawyers in the city. Finally to a private investigator I'd worked with before, asking him to dig deeper into Marcus's gambling activities. By lunchtime, I had the beginnings of a case building. The bank had flagged the transfer as fraudulent and was launching an investigation. Jennifer was reviewing the house purchase and found several concerning irregularities. And the PI had already uncovered links between Marcus and some known illegal gambling operations. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, looking at paint samples for the living room. Can't wait to make this house ours. I stared at the message, remembering how we used to spend hours discussing our future home, planning every detail together. Now those dreams felt hollow, tainted by his deception. Grace stopped by my office later that afternoon, closing the door behind her. "How are you holding up?" I looked up from my computer, where I'd been documenting every interaction with Marcus over the past few months. "I'm angry," I admitted. "Not just about the money, but about the trust. He violated everything we built together." She nodded, sitting down across from me. "Have you thought about what this means for your marriage?" The question hit me hard. Had I? Of course I had. Every time I uncovered another layer of Marcus's deception, every time I thought about how easily he justified taking my savings, I felt our marriage crumbling a little more. "I think," I said slowly, "it was over the moment I discovered the gambling. I just wasn't ready to admit it then." Grace reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you decide to do, I'm here for you." That evening, Marcus was waiting for me when I got home, surrounded by paint swatches and renovation magazines. His enthusiasm was almost painful to watch, knowing what was coming. "I thought we could drive by the house this weekend," he said, pulling me down next to him on the couch. "Maybe start planning which rooms to tackle first." I really looked at him, wondering how we'd gotten here. How the man I trusted with my life had become someone I barely recognized. "Actually," I said carefully, "we need to talk about the house. And about what you did to get it." Marcus's face changed as he processed my words, his excited smile fading into something more guarded. "What do you mean?" he asked, though I could see in his eyes that he knew exactly what I was talking about. "The money, Marcus," I said quietly. "My savings. You had no right to access that account, let alone empty it." He shifted on the couch, moving slightly away from me. "I told you, I saw your banking information. I thought since we're married, it would be okay. I was trying to do something special for us." "Something special?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. "Like the special something you've been doing with our joint savings?" His face paled. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my laptop and opened it, turning the screen toward him. "I know about the gambling, Marcus. Every transaction, every bet, every lie you've told to cover it up. I have it all documented right here." He stared at the screen, at the spreadsheet I created tracking his activities. His mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. "How long have you known?" 3 months, I replied, watching his expression carefully. "Long enough to protect myself. Long enough to gather evidence. And long enough to know that this marriage is over." Marcus jumped up from the couch, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Over? You can't be serious, Emma." "Yes, I made some mistakes, but I bought us a house. Our dream house. With stolen money," I corrected him. "Money you took without my permission. And let's be clear, you didn't buy it for us. You bought it to cover your tracks, to make it look like you've been responsible with our money instead of gambling it away." His face twisted with anger. "That's not fair. I've been trying to make things better. The gambling was just temporary, a way to increase our savings faster. I thought if I could win big just once." I held up my hand, stopping him. "Save it. The bank is already investigating the unauthorized transfer. The real estate lawyer I spoke with today says the house purchase will likely be invalidated since it was made with stolen funds. It's over, Marcus." He froze, his face draining of color. You went to a lawyer? Several, actually, I said, standing up to face him. And a private investigator who's been looking into your gambling activities. Did you think I wouldn't find out about the illegal poker games, the money you borrowed from those people? Marcus stumbled backward, collapsing into an armchair. Emma, please. You don't understand. I can fix this. Give me a chance to make it right. Like you've been fixing it for the past year. I asked, my voice sharp. By digging yourself deeper into debt? By stealing my savings? No, Marcus. I'm done giving you chances. I walked to our bedroom and pulled out the suitcase I'd packed that morning, rolling it back to the living room. Marcus watched me, his face a mix of panic and disbelief. Where are you going? He asked, his voice small. To Grace's, I replied, grabbing my coat. My lawyer will be in touch tomorrow with the divorce papers. Don't try to contact me directly. Divorce? He stood up, reaching for me. Emma, wait, we can work this out. I'll get help, I'll pay you back every penny. I stepped away from his outstretched hand. The funny thing is, Marcus, you thought you were so clever. Taking my savings, buying the house. But you didn't even consider that I might be smarter than you. His brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? I smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. That account you emptied? It was a decoy. The real money, almost twice what you took, is safe in an account you'll never find. I've been 10 steps ahead of you since the day I discovered your gambling. The look on his face was almost worth everything he put me through. The shock, the realization that I'd outmaneuvered him, it was all there. He started, but I cut him off. Goodbye, Marcus. Enjoy the house while you can. Though I doubt it will be for long. I walked out the door, leaving him standing there in stunned silence. As I drove to Grace's house, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of his deception, of pretending I didn't know what was happening, it was finally lifting. Grace was waiting for me when I arrived, a glass of wine already poured. How did he take it? She asked as I settled onto her couch. About as well as you'd expect, I replied, taking a long sip. But it's done. No going back now. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and investigations. The bank's fraud department moved quickly, freezing the funds Marcus had transferred and launching a criminal investigation into his unauthorized access. The real estate transaction was halted, the house purchase invalidated just as my lawyer had predicted. Marcus tried to contact me several times, his messages growing increasingly desperate as the consequences of his actions caught up with him. His gambling debts came to light, creditors started calling, and the police began investigating the illegal gambling operations he'd been involved with. I watched it all unfold from a safe distance, protected by my lawyers and the evidence I gathered. The money I'd secured in my secret account meant I could start over without financial worry, while Marcus faced the prospect of bankruptcy and potential criminal charges. One morning, about a month after I left, I drove past the Victorian house. The for sale sign was back up, its dreams of being our home forever shattered. But I felt no regret, no sadness for what could have been. Instead, I felt proud of myself for being strong enough to walk away, for being smart enough to protect myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Lunch? I have news about the divorce proceedings. I texted back a quick yes and took one last look at the house. It was beautiful, just as it had always been. But it no longer held the same magic for me. I had different dreams now, dreams that didn't involve Marcus or his lies. At lunch, Grace spread out several documents on the table. The judge is expediting the divorce given the circumstances, she explained. And with the evidence of financial fraud, you're likely to get a very favorable settlement. I nodded, picking at my salad. What about the gambling debts? Not your problem, Grace said firmly. The court has already determined that those debts were incurred without your knowledge or consent. They're his responsibility alone. And the criminal charges, Grace's expression turned serious. The DA is moving forward with prosecution for the unauthorized account access and transfer, combined with the gambling investigation. Well, Marcus is facing some serious consequences. I sat back, letting it all sink in. This wasn't how I'd imagined my marriage ending. But maybe it was better this way. A clean break, a fresh start. You know, Grace said softly, you handled this incredibly well. Most people would have confronted him immediately, made emotional decisions. But you stayed calm, gathered evidence, protected yourself. You should be proud. I smiled, thinking about the frightened, angry woman I'd been 3 months ago when I first discovered Marcus's betrayal. I learned something important through all this, I said. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about being smarter, stronger, and walking away with your head held high. 6 months later, I stood in the office of my new home, not a Victorian, but a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city. The divorce was final. Marcus had pleaded guilty to the criminal charges, and I was finally, truly free. On my desk sat a framed copy of my final divorce decree. Next to it, a news article about Marcus's conviction. Not as trophies, but as reminders of how far I'd come, of what I'd overcome. My phone buzzed with a message from Grace. Dinner tonight to celebrate your promotion. I smiled, typing back a quick absolutely. Life had moved on in unexpected ways. I'd been made partner at my law firm, partly due to how I'd handled my own case. I found strength I didn't know I had, and wisdom I never expected to gain. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows across my office. I walked to the window, watching the lights come on in buildings across the skyline. This wasn't the life I planned with Marcus, but it was better. It was mine, built on my terms, secured by my own wisdom and strength. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about getting better.